The first item is the exhaust. Now, a lot of people think that the Integra Type S is just a Civic Type R with a couple different exterior features, but there's a lot that has changed on this car. The first of these 7, specifically on the exhaust, are the tips. These are 4.33 inches, which is slightly wider than the Civic Type R. Additionally, on the front part of the exhaust, there is no front chamber, so it lets the exhaust breathe a little bit more, and that's why they're able to get the great pops out of this exhaust. Let's take a listen. In comparison, here's the exhaust of the Civic Type R in its most aggressive setting, R+ mode. These are the 19-inch copper wheels. Now, you can also get these in a darker gray color, but it just looks incredible, especially with the Acura-specific Brembo 4-piston brake calipers. Now, what you're going to want to know is, do these weigh more than the Civic Type R wheels? And the standard Civic Type R wheels actually weigh more than these 19-inch forged wheels. These wheels are also lighter than the 18-inch wheels on the Acura A-Spec. It is worth noting that the Civic Type R can be ordered with a set of 19-inch forged wheels that are 5 pounds lighter than the factory wheels. Those cost $3,100. The Integra is 31 pounds heavier than the Civic Type R because they left in the ELS 3D Studio sound system and kept in things like sound deadening in the heads-up display. And because of all of that, it makes the car more comfortable. And really, it's only 31 pounds. We're not racing F1, are we? Now, the miles per gallon on the Integra Type S are actually pretty good at 28 highway and 21 in the city. But despite all of the downforce and extra aero that the Type R has, it gets 22 in the city. So unfortunately, our rivers are going to turn black and very polluted because this isn't as efficient as a Type R. The Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires are developed specifically for the Type S and have a different tread pattern than the Type R. One of the main reasons that you would buy this or a Civic Type R is because you want to have driver engagement. You want to have a good exhaust sound. It has a manual transmission. It looks very aggressive, tri-tip exhaust. But what this thing delivers on that the Type R doesn't is the engagement level on the street. The suspension is perfectly tuned for the street. And more importantly, the exhaust gives you nice feedback. Now, I've set the car up in individual mode because if you put it into its most aggressive setting in Sport Plus, it's too stiff for the street. So I put that in Comfort, I put the steering in Sport, I put the throttle in Sport Plus, and that is just perfect. I mean, it gives you the feedback you want from the exhaust. You get those pops out of it. There's a certain RPM if you shift at that you actually get pops in between shifts. Right there, right at about 5. And it just sounds really good. And that's why you're spending the money on this car. I don't think that this is overpriced. I see it's priced like it is. I was hoping it was in the 40s, but I kind of assumed that it's going to be a slightly more luxury version than the Civic Type R, and that's exactly what it is. The Type R seats are surprisingly comfortable, and for the track, there's really nothing better. But on a daily basis, you are just going to like the Integra seats much better, simply because you don't have to crawl in and out and then be careful to not mess up the side bolstering. The Integra, obviously, on a daily basis, will be more comfortable. With the addition of a little bit extra power and some refinement to the exhaust, slightly nicer interior, more comfortable seats. These seats are sporty, but they're also comfortable enough. The Type R seats are very cool. They're like, for if you're going to the track or you're always in the canyons, those seats are incredible. I'm not saying anything bad about them. I'm just saying on a day-to-day basis, these are much more usable. They're durable. They have a little leather on them. So I think you're really gonna like these seats. And they still have the Alcantara or suede center cuts. Keeps you in place just a little bit better. The Civic Type R also has 315 horsepower. This has an extra 320 horsepower. Now, more importantly, the throttle mapping is significantly different in the Type S. You're able, again, to use more of it on the street. At half throttle, you have significantly more torque. That's something you're using on the street, and the car is very eager. Now, when I'm talking about throttle mapping. It was hard for me to understand even what I was really talking about until I got into the Type R and drove it. You have to work this engine a lot more to get everything out of it, whereas the Type S just has that mid-range torque that you're going to use more on a daily basis. So this, you really have to floor it to get everything out of it, whereas the Type S, that really wasn't the case. I'm in R+ mode, and the car is bouncing around like crazy. We need to go to individual. The suspension's just way too tight for what this is. So not that you're really gonna notice that when you're on back roads, but again, it's that daily basis that you're gonna be like, you know, I'm in a Type R, I wish this had a little bit more without having to flog the car. The Type S is a little better in that sense. It does have rev matching when you do downshifts, so that's very nice, but it's eager. Like when you get the car up to speed, it really asks for more. Like it wants to go faster, and it's quick. Like it's, you know, you get it going 80, 90 miles an hour very quickly in this thing. It's not like the old Hondas and Acuras of them revving up very high. This does have a 7,000 RPM rev limit, so it is fairly high. It's not like the, you know, the 8,000, 9,000 VTEC days, but it's very good and it's actually fast. So we have 4 different drive settings. We have Comfort, Sport, Sport Plus, and then Individual, which is recognized by this button here, and you can individualize that however you want. The difference now between the Type R is the Sport suspension setting is actually the Type R's Comfort suspension, and the Sport Plus suspension setting in the Type S is the Type R's Sport suspension. So again, it's just taking it a step back from the Type R while adding the luxury features. I just think they did an excellent job developing the Type S, and also a totally different team developed the Type S. So yes, it shares an engine, yes, it shares a chassis. There's a lot that's the same, but it is different in a lot of ways, and you'll be able to see that when I drive the upcoming Civic Type R. So I hope you enjoyed that video on the Integra Type S. Now, if you want to learn about this Type R, you're going to want to click this video right here to learn more about the Type R and watch the road trip. And if you don't want to watch the road trip video, but you want to watch a diagnosis on the Integra Type S, click this video right here. Those will both be good options.